And we're live. Sorry for the 2-minute delay. I was actually checking my mic volume. We've already got John in the house. Good morning, John. Good morning. How is the audio sounding? I was futzing around here. We've already got John in the house. Sounds good, actually. I was futzing around with my mic setup. I think it's time for a new computer. This computer got me through COVID. As you can tell, my exposure control varies in all kinds of degrees. Now it has decided to go into, I don't know what mode this is. This is not happy with the white balance. Give me 1 second, because I look like I just swallowed a ghost. It's always something. The difficulty I've got is I'm running a lot through one system, through one little tiny nook, and I think when it hits information overload, it goes into not happy with me mode. But that's okay. Today I'm going to do a free form topic, and I'm pretty excited about this. This is going to be my Spencer's Gen X hacks for how to get through the day. And many of my clients, including I know John and others, are of similar generation or older. Maybe some of you guys are actually boomers. What I'm going to do today, if the stream continues, let's see. Let's see if I have any luck getting it to run. If not, I have a potential of a reboot of the camera, but I'm going to deal with it. All right. Today, what I want to do is share with you something that's come up, because in a lot of the conversations I'll have with my clients in one-on-ones, we'll discuss the ideas of how they get their business off the ground. But it's just interesting to me that if somebody is approaching how to be successful in business, if they don't have a similar plan for how to hack their life, then things are going to be very difficult for them. And by the way, John, if you can comment, because I see you're the first one to say something. How is the audio coming through on your end? I think it's still good, right? Good morning. Because I look like... Okay. That's what I need to know. All right. I'm going to break this out. This is free form, and I'm going to actually share the screen. Let's put something in context, first of all. Know your audience. So when it comes to what I particularly do, I've told this story many times. I'm in the business of solving pain. I understood since I was 10 years old that I was an entrepreneur. And the funny story that I've told before is the going to camp and renting my dad's Playboy and Penthouse magazines to other campers and counselors. That was the first time that I knew there was a thing known as entrepreneurship, which is find a pain, something that you'd like to solve for yourself, figure out how to solve it for others. Once you find out how to solve it for others, start charging people. Voila, you have now become an entrepreneur. When you do that, you realize that the system of life is like a board game. It is like I used in those of you who are Star Trek fans, in the little icon below, you'll see Captain Kirk. And if you are a Star Trek fan, you know what I mean. But if not, there's a very famous episode where, and they refer to it in later movies, where Captain Kirk is asked about how he passed this famous Starfleet test called the Kobayashi Maru. And it's a metaphor for life. The Kobayashi Maru was a computer simulation, a battle simulation that was designed to be unbeatable. You could not beat it. And it was designed to elicit the response of the Starfleet potential captains and crew members on how they would respond to an unbeatable, good morning, Lloyd, to an unbeatable challenge. And the thing that I love William Shatner too, who, by the way, is seemingly living his character out, because he's in his, I think he's almost 100 now. He's in his late 90s, and he just launched into space, and he's looking better than some 75-year-olds. But in the character, he essentially said that he beat the Kobayashi Maru not by beating the game that was given to him, but by hacking the computer to make it beatable. And I think that is the thing that's the takeaway for me that I've learned after 58 years and hopefully a number of remaining years of productivity, is that life is a system that has lots of places that you can hack it. And that we have been taught through at least the American system, that there was a way that you go to school, you learn a trade or a task or a job or a career, you go to a job, you work for the man, you do it for some number of years, you retire, you get a watch, everything's groovy. Well, since that system has been blatantly blown up in public lately, and I'm not referring to just the last year, I'm talking about literally the last decade, they've just blown it up. And because we have technology that now is replacing a lot of the things that really that system was designed to supplement, it's really essential that those of us who are on the, I call it the third chapter of life, do something to hack the system, to essentially reprogram the computer to beat the Kobayashi Maru of life. And I like to hang my hat on a lot of things, one of which is Gen X, but the other is I'm a Scorpio. And you don't have to be into astrology. One of the things that Scorpios have as a trait is that we're very stubborn, very self-sufficient, very resilient. We like to be factually correct. We like to help others. We like things to be fair. We like things to be balanced. We like things to be win, 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 win. And one of the reasons that serves me well as an entrepreneur is that I'm able to say this to anything, anyone that doesn't go with that system. I don't do it flippantly. I don't do it without good cause, but I do it because I'd rather be able to say this or have somebody say this to me. Thank you. And today I'm going to work through some of the things that have been really useful for me when building my WordPress businesses, my other businesses, my life hacks have come into play. All right, let's start with the fundamentals. If you are going to play the game of life, if you are going to beat the system, I don't think there's anybody that would disagree, at least nobody who's over 50, that you have to do your health first. And your health means you have to figure out how you and your body operate most efficiently. This has to do with diet, exercise, sleep, relationships. What do you put in the gas tank of the car? I'm driving around in a 1966, I like to think, Corvette. Maybe somebody might say it's a Corvair, but I like to think it's a Corvette. There's no classic muscle car that is on the road from the 60s that does not have a lot of attention paid to changing the oil, lubricating the joints, making sure that the paint is properly washed and waxed and covered from bird pooping on it, that has all of the ignition adjusted constantly. All these things that computers and modern cars take care of, these classic cars, these 66 cars require a lot of attention. So let's break it down, and I'm going to share some of the things that I do. How does Spence's day start? Many of you might have seen me using my WordPress official WordFriends. This is from San Diego, I think. My Contigo. This is filled with what's called bulletproof coffee. And I'm going to do a little thing here. Bulletproof coffee is, for me, something that really works. A guy named Dave Asprey originally invented it. And bulletproof coffee is essentially a high quality coffee. I actually just use Kirkland brand. Excuse me, that has two key ingredients in it. You can kind of see it here. I like this picture. Let's see if we can blow this up. Let's open the image. The two key ingredients are grass-fed butter and coconut oil. I actually supplement mine with collagen peptides. Thank you, Jennifer Aniston. This is actually Vital Proteins chocolate. It's made here in Chicago. I think Jennifer Aniston has a part of this company. This is a chocolate powder that has no sugar, zero sugar. I add that to my bulletproof coffee, and it ends up being basically three things that really get my motor running. Number one, I don't have breakfast in the morning typically. Maybe I'll have a piece of bacon or an egg, but usually I have nothing. The grass-fed butter is something that for my system works. It fills me up, but it also provides the necessary fats and oils and things that my body actually runs pretty well on. The coconut oil, the MCT oil, I get it in a liquid form rather than this. You can do it in any form you want, but this actually passes through the blood-brain barrier and provides energy for my brain instead of glucose. I avoid sugar like the plague. I am a sugaraholic. I am a carbaholic. I avoid it like the plague because for me at least, sugar has a really like rocket fuel, a high ignition, but a really huge drop off. And I don't like those highs and lows. And I also don't like what it does to my belly and everything else. So when I combine these three things together, then I add the chocolate, collagen, proteins. I get stuff that's good for my joints, good for my brain, good for my belly. I eat less, and it's not quite intermittent fasting, which many people are very familiar with. Let me define that. Intermittent fasting is the concept, and it's got a lot of scientific proof that if you limit your intake of food to a range of hours, realistically, I've tried fasting all day long. It's hard. For me, I just don't really have breakfast. I have this, and it fills me up. I mean, honestly, I've barely even drank this one. The caffeine is stabilized by something else that I take, which is called L-theanine. It's a very simple supplement. I think it's an amino acid. I don't be quoted on this. L-theanine has a very interesting effect when combined with caffeine. It normally calms your system. It's very useful if you have trouble sleeping at night. But if you take it in combination with your coffee, and in particular bulletproof coffee, it is a neurotropic result. That is to say, the things work together in a synergistic way to make me really at my best, really get my brain going, although by looks of my camera, you couldn't tell. But at the same time, I don't get as much of a high and a low from the caffeine. So it sort of smooths the curve out on the caffeine. It works very similar to another thing that I often take in green tea. So if, for example, you do green tea matcha, which is oftentimes very refreshing as a change from coffee. You see this in Japanese sushi restaurants and stuff. Green tea matcha, a high quality one, very expensive. But if you make it at home, it's very satisfying. Sometimes I'll put a little tiny bit of honey, like a Manuka honey, a quality honey that also has some health benefits, antioxidant properties. But this is a nice light version of this. But what this ends up doing is it has the same kind of L-theanine built into it. So I get the sort of effect of the nice smooth green tea caffeination, I don't know, process, but I get it with the flavor of like a chocolate buttery matcha. For me, this is a great way to start the day. What I do when I get up, though, is I got to really move the tin man. So let's talk about some general things, and I'll use some more show and tell. I was very athletic as a kid, and I like to think I'm very athletic now. Not everybody has to be athletic. But what I think is a fair statement is that if you're going to essentially sit on your ass all day long, whether it be on the phone or the computer, there is going to be a consequence or a price that you're going to pay for that over time. For me, it happens to be my joints, my back, and so on. I played baseball, I played hockey, I did a lot of stuff where my friends and colleagues who are all the same age have literally had their knees replaced, their hips replaced, back surgeries, collarbones, shoulders. I have avoided most of the knee and hip stuff, although I do have struggles now with my knee joints. I've mostly gotten it in the back, right? And I famously talk about the fact that many of my discs have blown out. I'm still in the process of healing those things. What I find is necessary is that when I get up out of bed, I have to move. Motion is lotion. If I'm going to spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time sitting, which by the way is a challenge and not necessarily that healthy for anybody anyway, I've got to start my day by motion. And so for me, I really love being outside in the fresh air and the sunshine, even if it's really, really cold out. I have lots of different clothing that I wear for that. But essentially, I start the day with trying to get up, moving my joints with some basic, really low impact stretching exercises. That is to say, I go in my kitchen, I have a knee pad, I kneel down, I do some basic, like calm my mind and moving my arms and legs. Then I have a rod. I'm not going to do this in front of you guys. I have a rod that allows me to move my arms behind my head and kind of get my shoulder joints. I really work on my knee joints and doing low squats, but body weight squats. And let's share this a little bit. Body weight squats, especially for males, are probably the most important thing that anybody can do. I like this image, so I'm going to show this one. Um, for me, this has been a real game changer. I didn't understand the mechanics between a person's back, their knees, their hips until I had all these surgeries. But what I found out is it's kind of like a bridge. If you think of the Brooklyn Bridge, you think of uh, Golden Gate Bridge, be a good one. Huge steel columns, but there's these gigantic cables, and then there's caissons, and then there's pilings, and there's things that hold it with cables. All of these things work synergistically to keep the bridge standing, but they don't keep it standing like rock solid. It actually moves, it sways, it adjusts itself. But if one of those cables were cut or slack or removed, the bridge would fall. It literally would fall. So some things like doing squats, body weight squats, really are helpful. And I'm not going to get really scientific here with this, but like you have probably 15, 20 different muscles in your lower body. And when you're sitting all day, these muscles, these are some crazy drawings, but I won't try to turn this into an anatomy class either. These muscles really go to town. There's not just one muscle, two muscles. You've got hip flexors, you've got quadratus laborum, you've got your multifidus muscles, which for me were cut when they did some of the surgery. You've got your obturators, your sciatic nerve runs right through your piriformis muscle, and so on and so forth. So if you're sitting all day, starting your day with the stretching, especially some squats or some basic movements or yoga poses, or some things that are actually strengthening. I actually have been falling in love with two guys' programs online that are free. One is the Knees Over Toes guy, Ben Patrick. He's got free content on YouTube. You can go to Knees Over Toes guy or ATG. He has given me things that have helped me not have to go get surgery on my knees. The other is low back ability. This one has been real game changer as well. I know his face. I can't remember his name. I want to give credit where credit is due. Let's do who is low back ability. It's Brendan Backstrom. So Brendan is much younger than I am, but he had several years of very bad follow-up after herniated discs, and really emphasizes, along with there's another program, Foundation, that strengthening is as important, if not more so, than stretching. Just stretching isn't going to do it. So these have been very, very, very useful for me in combination with the other things that the doctors have recommended or that my own discoveries have led to. In realizing that by moving, by strengthening, by stretching, I can actually perform things that I don't think I would have otherwise been able to do at this point. I mean, quite honestly, this is now going on a 2-year journey. My accident happened in May of 2023. It's May of 2025. Kind of weird, but I can actually sit now for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. My problems are still like nerve pinching and some other stuff there. So let's move from what I do to start the day to what I do during the day. And I'm going to come back to mindset, but on the physical, walking. I enjoy lots of physical activities that are appropriate for a Gen X or above, but low impact stuff that involves myself or friends is really foundational to what I do on a daily basis. So one of the things, I'm not going to put a picture up of walking, but I am going to put a picture of walking and doing things like with the knees over toes means that I have a very specific routine that I do when I walk. One of the things that I do is reverse walking, knees over toes. What happens is, let's see if I get a good image of this. What happens is when I am, there we go. They're showing these guys on a treadmill, but I do this out in the open. What happens is the muscles of your knees and your legs work synergistically like the bridge. What I discovered is I've got really bad inner tendons, the MCLs. They're just rubbing over rough edges of my arthritic knees, I guess. Bang, 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 pop, pop, pop. In order to strengthen and stabilize, one of the things that has been recommended, it's really ridiculous and it works so well, is I spend the first quarter of my walk, which is typically, I'll do 10,000 steps a day, sometimes in one phase or sometimes in two phases. I will do that by starting the first quarter of the walk, maybe a mile, walking backwards. My neighbors have learned to love me, and I joke around when I see them. I go, I'm a time traveler from the future. You're never going to believe what's happening there. But after the joke is over, what it really does is it engages things that I wouldn't otherwise engage from either standing still or doing yoga or even just regular weights. It engages the lower parts of the legs and the things that stabilize the knee. It stabilizes parts of my hip. It's strengthening and stretching things that in that weird drawing, there's no way I was going to be getting to all this stuff on my own. I can only get to it from following these little tips and hacks. But it really just folds in nicely because when I'm walking, I will choose one of several types of mind altering audio stuff. I use a podcast tool. I use an iPhone, but this is a free one. You can use anything you want. I don't have to tell you how to use a podcast, but I use a free one that is I want to say it's podcast. Let me look at my actual phone. This is I think Mullenweg might have actually bought this one. This one is Pocket Casts. I think Mullenweg bought this with some of his Tumblr money. So this is the one that I use. I like it. It's very clean. Yeah, automatic, right. So this one is neat, clean. If only WordPress was run like Pocket Casts, right? It really does a nice job. And the things that I listen to really fall into a couple categories. First of all, I love business related, entrepreneurship related stuff. I have so many things that I could share with you here, but some of the ones that I've really enjoyed in particular, I'll just open it up this way instead. I don't think I can stream it. Not sure why it all of a sudden asked me to log in. It never asked me that before. Let me see. Now it's trying to sell me stuff. Okay. So a couple ones that I really love are ones that have to do with business. Guy Raz, How I Built This. This Week in Tech, old school. Startups for the Rest of Us. Love that because of a couple of reasons. First of all, let me do this actually. It's Rob Walling. Let me do this I'll just type them in. These are things you can discover on your own. One of the ones that I really, really love is My First Million. These two fellas are awesome. It's Shan Puri and Sean and Sam Parr. They're younger than I am, very successful. Some of the things that they talk about drive me crazy because they have not hit the point at which life kicks them in the nuts. But it's very, very motivational when they talk about how successful some of the people in their circle have been in such a short time, the 30 to 40-year-old crowd, which I remember being full of the same spit and vinegar. There's many other ones, but the second category of stuff that I find is really useful has to do with mindset. So I have been lately very much into Dr. Joe Dispenza. You can take or leave whichever flavor of this you want, but Dr. Joe has really revolutionized something that I learned about with the back recovery from Dr. Sarno, who talked about the same things, but he's been dead for a while, and he talked about it in a more practical way in the real world. Dr. Joe Dispenza has, I think, brought historically metaphysical mindset, quantum mechanics, new age stuff into a modern framework and backed it with science, backed it with statistical empirical evidence. Essentially, this is something that allows you to fall into the system where you can train your mind to change your body, change your life. It's a concept that's deeper than I want to go into here, but essentially it's saying that all of this world that we live in is a game. It's a game of quantum mechanics, and that we're spiritual beings having a human existence, but that when you hack into the system, you can actually have your framework, your mind framework, your perception, your belief systems, everything else can actually change the outcome of your physical world, because the way that this physical world is being projected may very well just be something that is a very, very incredible AI. We might all be just essentially living in a video game. And if that is true, and there's some evidence for that, then this is one of the ways that you can achieve things that would not otherwise be possible through the modern medical system, the modern financial system, and otherwise. What I love about this is it gives me an alternative, a parallel to do in combination with the things that I honestly do in a practical sense, right? So I have a very competent surgeon who is able to do modern medical techniques. But when it comes to things like nerve damage or pain, those are emotional plus physical things. Nobody, even the scientists, really understand what is pain. It is like we have a computer system in a brain that has a hard drive and an operating system and all these things, but nobody really understands what's the nature of how that works. They're speculative. Using a combination of what I would like to say quantum mechanics, metaphysical, spirituality, in combination with understanding, well, if I take certain drugs or if I take certain supplements, I will have better performance, to me is kind of covering all my bases. There was something that when I was much younger and I was a student of psychology and philosophy, I forget who the philosopher was. Let me see if I can find it. I can't, I'm going to just sum this up, but the concept was this: whether you believe in God as a being or God as a concept or God as an energy, the thing that I remember reading about or studying, I cannot remember which one it was that there was like almost like a genetic um, foursquare. If you believe in the concept of a God or a higher, spiritual existence outside this physical world, and you live a virtuous life following the golden rule, you're good. If at the other corner you don't believe in God and you leave a life in the physical world that is shitty, you treat people like shit, you've really screwed yourself. Because if God does exist or there is a spiritual life where you judge yourself, you essentially have screwed yourself out of like a good result. And at the same time, even if it doesn't exist, you've just screwed yourself out of a virtuous life while you're here. So I kind of like the idea, that was maybe a weak example, of following things like Dr. Joe, Dr. Sarno. If you are religious, which I am not, I am spiritual. Whatever your belief system, as long as it follows the golden rule, I think it's super important, because it gives you, or at least it's given me, something to pull me through the hard times. When you realize that there are things that cannot be changed, you have no control over, that's where people turn to things like spirituality, religion, mindset, and more, meditation. On a physical level, meditation has helped me to actually turn the knobs of the operating system. So whether it be when the pain threshold has been exceeded, or whether it be that the stress level has been exceeded, somebody says something that bothers me, having this new concept of being able to actually go into my head and use some of these techniques has been really revolutionary to me. And I know it's historically been around since forever, but Dr. Joe is one of the ones that I really like, because he brings this with tens of thousands of actual scientific end users, people who are doctors, surgeons, lawyers, skeptics, and they have demonstrable proof for what happens. This is interesting to me because it gets into the concept of what are we doing here as entrepreneurs in business. For me, I have a framework that says the same thing I just suggested, which is if I'm going to make money, and I've done so since I was 10 years old, I don't want to do it in a win-lose situation. Sometimes I've been asked why it is that I don't practice trial work. I was really good at it. The reason is Gladiator. In the movie Gladiator 1, I watched 2. I wasn't really super thrilled with it. I think it was enjoyable. But in Gladiator 1, Russell Crowe, who is still one of my favorite actors, was faced with the dilemma. The dilemma was that he had to kill people he didn't want to kill in order to get to the place he wanted to be, which is with his wrongfully murdered wife and child in the afterlife. And it was a real metaphor for me that I still think about a lot, because when I was a trial attorney, I was really good at it. But the way the trial work is set up, it's not set up for a win-win. The reason people go to trial is ultimately they can't agree. And the way the system is set up with our end stage capitalism, insurance companies oftentimes just don't want to pay on legitimate claims. And in fairness, sometimes lawyers are shysters and they just bring illegitimate claims too. But for legitimate clients of mine, I had to find people that had these really bad problems that really would never be solved by money, but that was the only way the system worked. Then I had to kill or be killed in order to win on their behalf. And it really dragged me down. Whereas in software, one of the things that I say frequently, in fact, almost every day, is it kills me that in WordPress, there's so much drama, that the people, including Matt Mullenweg, calling him by name, have chosen to say one thing in public all these years and then do the other. I am willing to walk away from tens of thousands of dollars, and I have done so several times, where I have made a promise to my clients, you guys. It's more important to me that I keep my promise to you. It's more important to me that I keep my name and reputation intact. It's more important to me that I do something that I will have what I've read about. It's called a zero regret framework for living my life, than to make the money right now. Because I've had the good fortune, let's say, over my professional career to be both multi-millionaire and bankrupt. I think most entrepreneurs have at some point or another. When I rebuilt from the real estate world and my divorce and my custody, where I ended up going through years of all that trauma, and very happily ended up getting custody of my kids and raising them. And 2 of them are adults now. One of them is a teenager. I rebuilt a business that was designed around the life that I had instead of the life that I thought I was going to have. So one of the things about resiliency and choosing is that it might have been an easier thing to go back into being a gladiator and making a lot of money as a trial attorney, but I didn't want to do that. I instead ended up doing something that was really fun, sort of started as a goof. And then along the way, when I realized that there was people throwing stuff in the way, Mark Andreessen and Gina Bianchini and all these other dramatic stories, I was able to figure out a way to keep moving it forward so that I can honor my promises to the people that mattered, my clients, my customers, my friends, my colleagues. And that kind of folds into another thing. When it comes to mindset, when it comes to how I succeed despite the problems, no person is an island. I can't imagine, even though I'm very, very happy spending most of my days alone working, I spend the time online talking to new friends, new colleagues, clients, people like you. I find it fascinating. I love people. I love just, if you've ever called me, give me a high five if you agree. I'll spend the first half hour talking about everything under the sun except what you called for. And some people love that. Maybe a few people are annoyed by that, but I just feel this is the alternative to me working in a corporation where I'm in an office at a water cooler. I just get to meet all kinds of fascinating people with all kinds of fascinating lives and ways of making a living. And many of you who are probably watching me now have become really close friends and confidants. Because to me, that's the whole purpose of this. It's not to make as much money and get off the phone. It's to build relationships and to be the expert for you that I would really like to be, where I can find win-wins. You win, I win, your clients win, even Mullenweg wins, because we don't need to fight over things. We can let the drama just pass over the top of us. Friends on the local level have been incredibly important for me and keep my mind in the game. If I were to spend all my time working at 58, I would say, what the fuck am I doing? Sorry for swearing, kids. Because I can see on a chart, and I've shared this before, and this is like Jesse, Sarah Blakely's husband, Jesse Itzler, shared this. I don't think he invented this. How many weeks do I have left to live? There's a chart that I've famously shared. You can pick your version of this. I kind of like this one. Let's see if I can open this up. So if you start at the top here, most people have a certain number of years. This goes till 89. I don't think most people live that long. I think the average life expectancy, men, is 75, right around here in the middle. So I'm 58. I'm right around here. Okay. I've only got this many rows left, man. I've only got 58 to 75. I got 17 years left. The last 5 are probably not going to be pretty. I mean, maybe I'm going to get lucky. My grandfather lived to 92. My father's alive, thankfully, and he's 84, going to be 85. So maybe I'll live longer, but I'm not going to be kicking it. I'm not going to be running mountains and e-biking and all that stuff. So to me, the real reason that I'm doing what I do is not just about the money anymore. It's about what am I doing when I get up, I feel like I'm helping people. I'm making a difference in the world one-on-one. I'm doing something that's both fun, but solving problems and pains. And I think I wish more people today would think of these things. And I think it is a trend because we're living in a world where success financially is much, much easier, in my opinion, than it was ever before. When I grew up, we had millionaires that to have $1 million was like a big deal. And you could buy a house for $35,000. My first house I bought in 1988 for $32,000, a 4-bedroom ranch in Champaign, Illinois. I mean, my first house in Chicago, $130,000 for a 2-flat in the middle of Lincoln Park, which good luck if you got a $8 million house there now. Life is not supposed to be only about money, but now we've got this weird thing that there's an emptiness, a space between what money is supposed to do for us and what people use it for. And unfortunately, the people who are hoarding the most money are really not acting for the benefit of mankind or their golden rule purposes anymore. They're hoarding it and then using it as a lever to try to crush a lot of people. And I think for myself, it helps my brain to know I'm a little bit of an underdog, a little Robin Hood, that I can help each of you one-to-one on improving your situation. And that as a whole, all of us who help each other will raise humanity, raise society. It really does help my mindset. And it gets me through a lot of dark days when I'm frustrated with the oligarchs or with the politics or with whatever, because I just keep thinking in my brain, why is it like this? Why do people think that having $1 billion is good, but $10 billion is better? Not to sound preachy, most people could never spend $1 billion, period, let alone $100 million, let alone $50 million, even if you spent it all day long. So I love the fact that I can do something that's really fun, very creative, but financially lucrative enough, but I can share it, spread it around, and spend my time building these relationships. When I'm not talking to people who I'm working with, there you go. And John, when I met John, and I didn't know you were a Scorpio, John, like me, but that explains a lot. I thought you were much younger, so you're killing it. And you have, I know we talked about this, the same mindset. I like to do things with my friends because as a guy, it's historically factual. I mean, I think there's scientific proof. Do women outlive men? I say the answer is yes. In America, for sure. And the gap doesn't say specifically how much. I think it's 5 to 7 years at least. 6 years. Okay. I know the reason why. The reason why is because, and this sounds maybe a little stereotypical, forgive me, it's not trying to be misogynistic. Women are much better at supporting their friends. When you're a guy, you're a dog. You have only 3 things that motivate you: food, sex, and praise. And the way that we learn as guys to get along is a bunch of dogs get together at the park and bark at each other until one of them gets the answers from the other dogs. That's what you should do. And that dog goes, yes. Oh, okay. That's not sport. That's just a bunch of dudes hassling each other until one of them essentially proves that he's right. And what I've found lately is that even though I'm very much like that, and I was as a kid, that my friends are now more interested in being more female and supporting each other. In other words, talking, helping, listening. And I do that a lot with my clients. John and I had some wonderful conversations on that, and many of you have as well. Lloyd and I have spoken about these things. That in my older age, I envision myself surrounded by a bunch of buddies doing activities that are realistic and meaningful. So, for example, one of the things that I am into, which is fantastic for fellas or women, is what one of my clients, Colleen, does, pickleball. So Colleen runs Picklevisor, but pickleball is like ping pong for adults. It's men and women. I play it regularly with a group of fellas. If you're up for it and your back is allowing, you might do the same thing with golf, or you might do with tennis, or you might do with other similar activities. But pickleball is particularly good because even with my problems physically, I can still play it. I also enjoy the typical tacos and beer. I also enjoy getting together with the fellas and doing stuff like, we don't shoot pool anymore, but we might get together and just go out for, drinks and tacos and pizza or something not too terribly bad. Not so much drinking, but just like socializing, sitting out. The other thing that I do, because I like to play music, is I'm in a dad band. So I have 2 or 3 fellas, depending on the week, who we've been getting together for 5 years, and we play music, we record, we often play locally at some bars. We're never going to make a dollar or a dime from it, but it doesn't matter. It's just a reason to exist that goes beyond making the money, or the things that I do when it comes to my family or taking care of my kids and things of that nature. And all of these really just blend together that make me feel a lot like my life is not making money to make money or making money trying to get to being a millionaire again. I've set it up this time around where the business that I have can be run by me alone instead of 12 employees. I used to have contractors that worked for me. I had a whole office full of secretaries and legal clerks. Even in the online space, I used to have a dozen people that were previously students of mine working to help kill Frankenstein monsters for clients. And I decided, and I've talked about this here, I wanted a business to go into this third chapter of life that I could run and manage that was recurring and self-sustaining, but it was really about selling myself in a relationship way. And for many of you, including John and Lloyd and some of the others I see here, you have been taught by me or explained to by me that I think those are the things that you're really selling. The people aren't really buying just your website or your membership. They're really buying a relationship with you and your expertise, because the technology itself is going to change infinitely. And so one of the other things that I do on a regular basis, besides having a regular day of starting my day, doing mindfulness, meditation, walking, stretching, is friends, is setting myself up with a regular schedule of things to do, people to meet, that feels a lot like when I was in college, right? Like, I know I have classes in the morning, but then I'm playing pickup basketball, and there's a party at the fraternity house later, and then in the weekend there's a football game. Like, setting up a schedule of things to look forward to is essential. And in fact, in my personal profile on Facebook, I have a Zen saying, which really applies. There's only 3 things that are necessary for happiness: something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to. And it's really self-correcting, because if you don't have someone to love, that's giving you something to do and something to look forward to. And you can go through that iteration. So for me, that's worked out really well. Maintaining my state during the day is setting myself up for the final thing I want to talk about, which is sleep. So besides the morning stretching and the walking and the other stuff that I'll do during the day, I actually feel it's very important for me to stay physically, muscularly fit. The testosterone, the curative properties of your body systems have been proven by science to work best when you have muscle mass, because we're all basically just wasting away. So I do hit the gym. I don't go crazy. It's not high impact. I actually have a home gym that I did during COVID with some basic, Costco cable machines. But other than that, Planet Fitness, baby, it's fine. There's 3 or 4 big gyms by me. Planet Fitness is $25. It's really just what you need. But what really works for me is that it's usually there's 2 or 3 clubs by me. There's 2 or 3 that have a bunch of people in them at all times. So if I'm sitting here all day long and I've spent too much time by myself, I'll just head over to the Planet Fitness. I usually go once or twice a week regularly, and I meet a buddy there because there's people around, there's energy there. I'll do my sets, and I'm not trying to become huge, but I did have an athletic youth. So my muscles remember. If I activate them, if I use them, I stay leaner, I stay more flexible, I prevent more injuries. Because at the end of the day, I think sitting around all day is the recipe for things breaking, right? Like you sit around all day and then you try to go play pickleball, one false move and you snap like a piece of glass instead of being flexible like a willow branch. The other thing that I am just crazy fanatical about is e-biking. So I have lots of bikes. I have 4 e-bikes now. You can get into e-biking now. This is the latest one I've purchased. I got mine in yellow, by the way, because I love yellow, as you can tell. I bought 2 of these. I actually ended up getting a 2-for-1 deal because the first one they sent me was broken, and they begrudgingly, after I argued about it forever, they sent me another one. But the point is, I've got 2 of these, and then I've got another couple that are like with fat tires. And what that means is myself, my 14-year-old, my 21-year-old, my girlfriend, my buddies, I can go riding like a pack of school kids. And e-bikes means that we can go farther and faster in any kind of weather. So on Wednesdays, I have a regular lunch date with a buddy of mine, Sam. We usually, in warm weather, will bike in the evenings till sunset along the lakefront, even in not so great weather. E-bikes are the thing that are sort of like the new trend besides pickleball for people who really used to love biking, but I'm not getting on a regular 10-speed bike and fighting into the wind and going uphill. I want an e-bike so that I can always manage my cadence, how much effort it takes, how much it hurts my back or not. And these things are so much fun. So they go from like 0 to 28 miles per hour. You can go 25 to 60, 80 miles sometimes, depending on your weight. $650 for a reasonable quality one. More fun than you'd ever imagine. And if you get a pair of them, the best thing you'll ever do with yourself, your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friends, your kids, so forth. So this is instrumental. Now, for me, as a previous trial attorney, hey kids, I value not screwing this shit up. I have had accidents even at 5 miles an hour. So I don't wear these, by the way, are super cool, these airsoft masks, but bikes. For myself and my kids, wear full face mask helmets. Yes, people give me shit about it. And I say, let me share some photos of you from my old client days when somebody goes over the front of their handlebars at 25 miles an hour and hits their face on the pavement, because it isn't pretty, the reconstruction. With this and some gloves and sometimes, protective gear on my knees and so forth, I feel fairly comfortable as long as I stay off the streets that I'm going to have a great time and not screw my shit up, not break my wrists, not screw up my face. This is the moneymaker, folks. And it makes it possible for me to really relax. Plus, these are class 2, which means that in Illinois, at least, you can ride them on the sidewalks. So other than, people walking their dogs on leash, looking at their phones, there's very few dangers of a car hitting you. So this has been really a big deal. I think overall, to wrap this up, the thing I want to impress upon you is that I could share lots of other details, and I may do so. Things that I cook, things that I eat, the different techniques I use around the office, including my camera setup, which is going to be redone. these might be useful. If you think they're fun and useful, I would love to share them with you. I am an aviation buff. The other day, I posted a video about something super cool, which was a new air bike. I used to fly these machines called trikes. That's the whole trike pilot, right? So now I've redirected it, by the way, to Facebook because I'm no longer bothering with the social network. Trike pilot, these are these awesome machines. They're literally like motorcycles with wings. That's not a trike. This is a trike. I flew these for 20 years. I grew this network. I loved this. I don't currently have the space or the time to do this. I will do it again in the future, perhaps. But I get the same feeling when I do the e-bike. I was sharing with folks that there was this new device that came out that is very much to me like trikes, except it uses kind of electric rotors, like a quadricopter, like one of those drones. And this dude had invented for himself. There's 10 or so commercial companies doing it. I have no doubt that in a couple of years, we'll be able to fly these like speeder bikes. They look a lot like what you'd see in the Star Wars when they're flying through the woods. Having those kinds of toys, my flight simulators, my e-bikes, my infinite amounts of musical instruments, you can see the big TV, the flight simulator, all this makes me feel like a kid. And I don't know why anybody should ever grow bored and old and bitter and angry when the world is filled now with infinite amounts of interesting people, all available to share things with. Infinite amounts of technology that's a fraction of the cost, from VR to flying machines to e-bikes. Plenty of money, plenty of opportunity for you using the systems that I show you to make a lawyer's level salary or income. And I'm not going to say exactly, someday I might do this, but I found that the reason I don't share my revenues with folks is that it causes a thing called schadenfreude. Because I have schadenfreude. And I learned this, by the way, from James Spader when he was acting on Boston Legal. There was a great episode. I still remember it today. James Spader, one of my favorite underrated actors of all time. He has a show called Blacklist, which I think is on reruns, but just great actor. No way I'm going to spell it. This is how it's spelled. Schadenfreude. It's a German term. Pleasure derived from someone else's misfortune. The problem with the world today, and the reason I don't talk about my revenue specifically, although you can do some math, I show people that I have 4,600 clients live, is that everybody then is either going to be angry or jealous or trying to prove that I'm an idiot. For the same reason that I do that when I see these billionaires acting like dicks. I say to myself, how can a person with that situation ever say or do anything that hurts somebody else or I don't agree with? It's human nature. We do this all the time. It's like VH1 behind the music. So I may in the future decide to do that. I have lots of my friends and colleagues who I love dearly, who are beloved people, including Jack Arturo and some others, who do their annual wrap-ups and they share dollar for dollar how much they make. So you can figure it out. Some of them are making $800,000 to $1.5 million. Doesn't matter. I can tell you this much. I raised 3 kids. I was multimillionaire, went bankrupt because of the real estate market. Everybody just voluntarily turned in all their stuff. That's how it went. And from 2006, divorce, custody, raising 3 kids, a million medical problems, lots of incredible journeys and opportunities and fantastic experiences. Everything since then has gotten better. But I know what it's like to do the VH1 behind the music, the hero's journey. And what I'm saying is this 3rd chapter with the dots that I've got left, okay? I don't need to be making $2 million or $5 million or $100 million. A few $100,000 a year goes a long way when you work from home and your kids are adults. So the goal is real. The goal is attainable by just the simple math of $97 a month is about $1,200 a year per client. If you got 10 clients, that's $12,000. If you got 100 clients, that's $120,000. If you had 200 clients, that's $250,000 for just 200 people automatically paying you $97 a month for something that, for the most part, You're just there to do basic help with or otherwise manage for them. In between the cracks are the things that I sell, which are hands-on. $300 an hour to $5,000 for a block of a couple weeks. You can do the math on that. If I had 2, 3, 4 clients a month, 5 clients a month, 20,000 times 12 is $240,000 by itself. I'm not saying that's what happens or I want to do every month, but I am saying the math is solid for you guys to have the lifestyle that is both realistically possible today, using just exactly what I already offer you for the topic that turns you on, that you're an expert at, whether it's AI or technology. Lloyd's into security, John's into AI, Ann's into nutrition. I could go down the list. Bernie's into, KPIs. Whatever you're an expert at, you can have a life that you're a teenager again, and you keep your motor running, and you don't have to have employees, and you don't have to worry about AI technology taking it away. In fact, AI is what makes it possible for me to do more in less time with less people. And that is, to me, a recipe for a fulfilling life, and one that I can sustain. So I really do believe, and I get up every day with this belief, that I'm going to be here until you one day find me collapsed at the computer. This is where I want to be buried, at the computer or at the device, having interesting conversations with interesting people that I care about, truly care about, like you guys. And along the way, I expect there's going to be lots of exciting and fun innovations. I want to thank you guys for going along with me for the ride, both in general and for today, and bearing with my technological insufficiencies, which I am also happy to share in public. After 40 years of being a technology expert and 25 plus, I still futz around every day with, why is this camera not working? Let me know what you think. Email me back when you see this video, post a comment. I'm going to maybe try to put up some more content in the YouTube channel, as well as in the email list that's outside the bounds of just technically the software bundle and stuff like that, and see whether or not that has some resonance with you guys. Otherwise, I hope you have an amazing weekend. I am going for a sushi date lunch, which is also one of the fun things about being a happily not married at the moment guy whose kids are almost all out of the house. I get to pretend like I'm in college, and I'm going to go meet some very nice new person for a sushi date. So I hope you guys have a good day. John, we can talk. Since you're listening, I'm going to talk to you later today after I return from my sushi date. For the rest of you guys, great to see you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to hear from you. Talk to you soon.